good to see wear around my face on the little screen here. It looks a bit, okay, what's going on? Good to join with each one of you here today. The topic that I want to talk on today has developed from somewhere else I was going, but I felt this is the way the Lord has led me. I'm calling it Even When I Don't See Him. And those words, I think, will ring true to one of the songs that we sing regularly, and we are going to sing it later. And I've got 4 headings. First of all, under the heading, Even When I Don't See Him, Jesus in disguise. He doesn't always give us advance notice of when he's going to appear. Why do believers who've met with Jesus walk away from him? And when he comes to me, what does he expect of me? Now, some may think that Jesus appeared to people in disguise, and I guess we could say he did. On the road to Emmaus, we read, now that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognising him. He asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened here recently? What things? He asked. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. Now those disciples were talking on the road to Emmaus. They left the place where they had experienced everything that Jesus was saying and doing. One said they had been riding a high because it was so wonderful what they said, but there were joy that turned to disappointment and disillusionment, and they were angry and hurt and frustrated because people had taken away their Lord and they had treated him badly. And their expectations also about what he would do had not been fulfilled. So they were angry and they were angry at God, but they were angry because they hadn't seen the fulfillment of the promises. And I think for us, we do too. When Jesus appears, we may not recognise that he has come to us because we had a picture of what it would look like, what it would be like. And I think we can learn that from that story. Jesus came in disguise to them. After they realised who the stranger was, the disciples could probably be overheard saying, well, we didn't see that coming. And some would say that there were divine interruptions. The second appearance I want to talk about where Jesus could be said to be in disguise is at the grave. They asked her, as the woman who'd gone to his grave, why are you crying? They've taken my Lord away, she said, and I don't know where they put him. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't realise that it was him. He asked her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it looking for? It was the gardener. She said, sir, if you carry him away, tell me where you put him, and I'll get him. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned towards him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with news. I've seen the Lord, and she told them that he had said these things to her. Her sorrow had turned to joy. And then we could look at some unexpected appearances, not necessarily in disguise, but unexpected times when Jesus came to people. In the upper room, he actually walked through a wall. Doesn't happen every day. We can read in John 20, that Sunday evening the disciples were meeting behind locked doors because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders. Suddenly, Jesus was standing there among them. Peace be with you, he said. As he spoke, he showed them the wounds in his hands and his side. They were filled with joy when they saw him. Once again, joy came to the people. Then Jesus appeared on the water. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Now Jesus had told those men to go out on the lake. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it's I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. And I think most of you know the rest of the story. Peter's faith took him out onto the water. Faith dipped, so did he. But I think we can learn from that when we don't recognise that Jesus is with us, we can be very fearful. And that's often a response. The last incidents I want to give of Jesus making an unexpected encounter with people was just to mention that there are apparently, we don't know how many hundreds of Muslim people coming to know Jesus, and they're meeting him through having life-changing dreams. No one's preaching to them, they're not reading their Bible, they're having life-changing dreams. And most aren't expecting to see him, and most didn't know what he stood for. But it seems from what we hear about this that there was enough of meeting with this man in their dreams so that they knew who he was and they knew that they could follow him. They knew they were willing to give up their lives if necessary, and many of them have either given up family or their lives to follow after him. The supernatural appearance that they are having was accompanied and is accompanied by supernatural awareness of who Jesus is. And I think sometimes when we think we've witnessed to people and told them, you think afterwards, "Oh, I should have said this, I should have said that." Sometimes it's just our own faith that comes through in what we're saying. And people, they then go on and find out for themselves. We don't have to spoon-feed them always with the whole of the gospel, particularly when it's places like the expo. Now my point, Jesus doesn't give us always advance notice, and he doesn't always tell us when he's going to come. Often we don't see that he's been doing something till we look back. From the unexpected encounters people had with Jesus, we see dismay, anger, abandonment, sorrow and fear. But they turn to surprise, joy, faith and understanding when they recognise that he had come to them. I think the question came to me, if Christian people, believers, know that God has entrusted us to follow him, why do we need to look at the question, why do believers walk away from him? I just had my mind started thinking, because we all know people who've walked away from the Lord, having known him. Maybe some of our family have known him, and then they seem to walk away. And of course, we don't know the end of the story, but at the moment we are praying for people who used to follow Jesus. Why do they walk away? Well, some have felt disappointed or disillusioned by other Christians or by the church. They may have had their hearts broken by things that have been said and done in churches. It does happen. And often the result is bitterness. And they may also have doubt, defeat and shame. Like, why don't I fit? Why can't I belong? Why isn't there a place for me? And I believe that usually at the heart of walking away from him is the pain of grief, which inevitably leads to anger. Grief doesn't stay as a sorrowing, it develops into anger eventually. Grief and anger can tear at our hearts and make everything that happens around us is magnified, and then we try and escape from the pain. Most of us don't like going through pain. Barry will probably tell some of you at some time about the pain through this week from a lump that he had on his back. The doctor was brutal with him. He didn't didn't enjoy it, neither did the doctor. But most of us try and escape that type of thing. And here's a little something controversial. People don't realise that when they give up going to church regularly, that they have in some way given up on God. Many will justify this walking away from Him with intellectual, disbelieving or rebellious attitudes. But our gracious God understands this and is very patient with those who turn from Him, and is always ready to embrace the repentant one who turns from Him and then turns back. He knows that if we don't face the reason for our grief and bitterness, we'll take it with us wherever we go. So I think most of you know that if you don't deal with this stuff, it goes with you. It will go with you on the Emmaus Road. And in the Emmaus Road might be the opposite direction that Jesus wants to go with us and meet with us. It will go with us to the next place, to the next marriage, to the next church, to the next situation, until we let God do His restorative work. The blessing which may have come from the fact that the blessing to us from all that is that we might find those broken places lead to revelation and encounter, and sometimes an unexpected encounter with Jesus. He may come in disguise, or He may just turn up and we think, wow, do I deserve that? What happened? What did I do so I can do it again next time? Let me write it in a book or write it down or tell somebody so I can do the same thing again. Often that works, sometimes it doesn't. Now, how do we have this revelation and encounter come to us? If Jesus doesn't turn up in what I'll call supernatural ways, how do we meet with Him? Well, it might just be the regular discipline of walking and talking with Him on the road that He is taking us, not letting distractions lead us away from Him, by lingering in His presence, not giving up on meeting with others who worship and serve Him, taking communion together, a wonderful opportunity to regularly confess our sins and to acknowledge Him as Lord. We ask for open eyes and ears, taking time to record the questions and conversations that we have with Jesus. When we have our course on hearing God's voice, we're always reminded how good it is to have two-way conversations with Jesus. Ask Him a question and then just sit and wait what He might say to you. I'll give you an example about that in a moment. And the last point I've had down is to be obedient. Whatever His word says to do, if we're obedient, we're much more likely to meet with Him and experience His presence. In your hardest, most painful places and times, God is with you and He will give you strength. If we look back, we'll often see that He was working in us. He was there when you felt misunderstood. He was there when you lost your loved parent. He was there when your friend betrayed you. He was there when you went through that painful divorce. He was there when suicide seemed to be the only option. He was there when you suffered the violation of your body, mind, and spirit. He asks us to follow Him even though we only see life as a shadow of the reality that He has prepared for us. We know that knowing Him and living close to Him positions us to know the sweetness and power of His presence. And those who listen to me preach, you know that an old song always comes to me and I have to share it with you. Some of you are old enough to know the song. This one is, I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. He speaks, and the sound of His voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that He gives to me within my heart is ringing. I stay in the garden with Him, though the night around me is falling, but He bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own. And the joy we share as we tarry there none other has ever known. Who remembers that song? I'm sure the tune's going over in your mind. Now, my last point is, if Jesus is going to meet with me, if I've invited him to come in and I've drawn close to him, what does he expect of me? Now, there's a question that comes up associated with the story that I'm going to share with you in a moment. The question that goes along with what does he expect of me is, am I worthy of suffering for him? This question should be on our minds as we ask him to draw near to us, especially if we've waited for an answer for a long time. And what I'm trying to say is that if we haven't had an answer to prayer, maybe there's another question that God is asking us, and he wants us to find the answer. From the Bible accounts, we see that even those people who knew him well, they either gave up or gave in to fear very quickly. They reacted in anger because of the injustice, even though they knew that suffering was part of the journey of Jesus. They had told him about it, so they shouldn't have been surprised, but they were angry. Those people experienced great sorrow when they faced the finality of the death of Jesus. They experienced great joy when they returned to his presence. The fact that he may reveal himself in unexpected ways is part of the mystery of our faith. Now, those of you who listen to Bill Johnson know that he often talks about the mystery of our faith, and I think it's a good phrase because it to me, it sums up the fact that we don't get all the answers. There is mystery. God is God, and he's greater than us. He's wiser than us. He draws near, but he doesn't always give us the whole picture. The story that I'm going to read is the story of Dr. Helen Roseveare, and a couple of weeks ago Barry told a story about Dr. Helen Roseveare who went to Cambodia, was it? Congo, that's right. I knew there was a C there. And there was a miraculous answer to prayer for one of the children who was there, a wonderful experience. This is her own personal experience. And you can see her story on YouTube if you're interested in knowing. But she went as a doctor to the Congo. She obeyed God's call to serve as a missionary doctor, not knowing that her faith was going to be tested. She witnessed terrible atrocities by the newly liberated people. She had decided to remain in Africa even after the violent uprising among the people. Many of the missionaries had left the country, but she had decided that she would stay. Helen was asked, this is later on, whether all the suffering she had gone through was worth the price she paid. Her reply was that when she asked God if the price was too high for her, he said the question should be, am I worthy of suffering for him? Am I worthy of suffering for him? Instead of looking at the price she had to pay, he is thinking of the privilege he wanted to give her, the privilege of suffering for him. What followed was an answer to her question, is the price of suffering for him too high? Her testimony has been used by God over many years to bring many to know God and to serve him, not just follow him, but serve him no matter what the cost, because she almost paid the ultimate cost in her death. I'll go on. She lived to tell her story, and it has been a blessing to many people. We can learn from her experience that not only does God reveal himself in ways which may be seen as harsh or unjust. People might say, well, why did she have to suffer like that? She went as a missionary to serve the people. Why did they treat her so terribly? And we can also learn that God had gone before her to the place of suffering. He knew that she was going to suffer, and he had already gone ahead. And if we surrender our lives to him, no matter whether it's a missionary service or it's no matter what it is, if we're following him, we must be in surrendering, we must be willing to suffer. And we must trust him, even when we don't get the right answers to our questions. We read in 1 Peter 4:12, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial that has come upon you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice that you share in the sufferings of Christ, so that you may be overjoyed at the revelation of his glory. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests on you. Now there's some more words from an old song that I want to refer to. I won't say too many of them, but this particular song has been a great blessing to me over the years, where I didn't know quite where I fitted in the kingdom work of God, even in the church that we're in. And it really upset me at times that I just didn't feel like I was going on. So this particular song came to me, and the words are, God is too wise to be mistaken. God is too good to be unkind. So when you don't understand, when you don't see his plan, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. And apparently even C.H. Spurgeon, who was a valiant soldier and a wonderful preacher for many years in London, but he spent most of his ministerial life in deep depression. That song meant a lot to him. God is too good to be unkind, and he's too wise to be mistaken. And we cannot trace his hand, we must trust. Reading the Bible, and I know some of you do that regularly. Most of you would pray every day. Many of you receive prayer. We sing songs of worship, or maybe you sit and journal with God. There are various ways. Maybe it's in a lovely sunset or something else that you've done. You meet with Jesus. It doesn't matter how wonderful the experience is in meeting with him. We never have the full revelation of him in this life. Each of us could testify of a time when we felt the nearness of Jesus, and we know that it leaves us longing for more. We kind of think, I've got a handle on that, let me take it, and that'll keep me going for the next 10 years. But in the next 10 days, sure enough, we were looking for that experience again. Maybe our heart was burning when we had that encounter with him. And a little experience that I had a few months ago, and I have shared this with people. So I was leading the communion service, and we have a red order service. And as I was reading the words of Jesus, the words that come from his mouth, I actually had a picture of him sitting down at a table and sort of drawing his chair up and talking to the people who were there at the table with him. And he was actually speaking the words that I say when I echo his words in the communion service, like, this is my body. He took over and said the words himself. And it was something very funny that it was so unexpected encounter. We're going to sing the song of Waymaker in a moment, because I think that sums up a lot of what I'm trying to say today. And most of us like to sing that song with enthusiasm. It's one of the favourite songs over our last few years. The words of that song are a declaration of who God is and how he makes a way for us even in the dark times in our lives, when we don't see him and when we don't feel him. He is our waymaker, our miracle worker. He has experienced all the pain, all the sense of desertion or whatever it is, and he's given us the victory over those things. Here's just one more Bible passage that I want to read. Um, when he was at the table with them, this is the disciples, he took it, gave thanks, and broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, suddenly he was serving them, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They not only saw him, talked with him, and saw him disappear, but he took the bread and wine with them, and the response was their hearts burned within them. It was a real living encounter. Jesus often appears unexpectedly, and he sometimes disappears unexpectedly too. But we have to realise that we only have a trailer to the main event. If you go to the movies, you know they'd like to give you a taste of what's to come. And sometimes meeting with Jesus or reading his word or in some ways meeting with him, we get a part of the story. We never get the whole lot. He is the creator, the producer and the writer of our story, and every one of them is unique. He knows how every scene will play out, and he knows the ending. If you're someone like Barry who looks to the end of the book to find out if it's got a happy ending, to see if it's worth reading it, personally that's not the way I operate, but some people do. If you're one of those people, you're not going to get the ending. You can read the wonderful blessings in Scripture, but as to exactly how the steps are that are going to get you to that place, none of us knows. He has the bigger picture. So don't give up. If you're not having that unexpected or that expected experience of meeting with him, don't give up because you don't like the script or things aren't going your way. You don't see him working for you. You don't feel he's needed to you. You're not sure of a happy ending or that the price is too high. He's there ahead of you. He's right beside you. You know, he's here now. He has prepared a place for you. And I want to finish off today by some journaling that I was doing a couple of days ago. I was just sitting, meditating and praying and listening and reading, and the phrase, the Son of Man had nowhere where to lay his head, came to me. And I thought, oh, what's that about? It had no relevance to what I was thinking about. So I got my little journal out, I had my iPad in front of me, so I used that. And I thought, I'll have a conversation with God about that. And I want to share you with it because of an unexpected encounter for me, but also I think it's relevant to all of us in knowing that we are moving out of this building and moving to a new place. Lord, I feel you have brought these words to my mind and ask you to tell me what they mean for me. My child, as you wait on me, you will see an unfolding of my plans for you. I know you are both focused on establishing a new home for your church. You are aware of the changes you will all experience. You will see the emergence of something new as you move on. I encourage you to consider the words I have given to you in relation to your new church. That's about having nowhere to lay his head. So I have thought, from humble beginnings, I came to establish a glorious new kingdom. So I thought, well, I'll have a go and see if I can get an answer. And most of you will find that when you're journaling, you don't get a lot of specific answers to the question. So I said to the Lord, Lord, are we talking about the church at so-and-so, the one that we've got our eye on? Have you set this place apart for a glorious new start for us? We want to submit our plans to you, not just to the people involved. And here was the Lord's answer. My child, you will see an unveiling of a new and glorious work, beginning in a place formerly experiencing decline, now ready for the wind of my spirit to blow through. I am poised, ready to have your church spring to life. Praise God. The last days will be much greater than the first, and you'll come to see the greater things I've spoken of. Remember, the problems you have found in finding a suitable place of worship are not to be compared with the exclusion which happened at my birth and also in my time on earth. The former things will be forgotten soon, and your people will be surprised by this. Lord, I trust in you to finish what you have begun and that you have the blueprints for a ministry. Even when I can't see him at work, his word comes to reveal that he's here with me in every situation. He's here with you in every situation. What's gone before, what is happening now, what's happening in the future. And I'll just say to the people who are listening on the screen, we're going to sing Waymaker now, and some of you might like to tune in on whatever sort of device you're looking at and join with us. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you.
So we'll stand and sing.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you.